Hello, Dusty again, and I am back as promised to show you what to do after you've finished casting on your stitches. Okay, this is a yarn cake that I have spun into a cake. You can feed this kind of ball from either the outside or from the inside. I'm going to feed it from the inside. Okay, so as I've shown you in the past, we're going to cast on. Now these are just Takumi size 10? 7, sorry. And just some standard worsted weight yarn. So we're going to take one of the needles. We're going to make our slip knot. And you can do that by hand or with a needle, whatever you want. Whoops, maybe actually make the slip knot. There we go. And make sure that when you pull the feed yarn, not the short one, that tightens it. Okay, I'm going to cast on 20 stitches. 1, 2. Note that the slip knot that you put on counts as a stitch. So whenever you're casting on, remember that. Like if you're using a pattern. And I'm doing this. Whoops. The thumb method, although I'm not doing the whole thumb method. You can also, again, just twist it. Make sure that you twist it so that the yarn comes through the little space here. 6, 9, 12, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. I've got 20 stitches, okay? I'm not worried about gauge because I'm just showing you how. Gauge is how many stitches per inch your needles and yarn and style will produce. Okay. And I've gone over at length how to cast on, so if you didn't get that, please watch the other video. All right, so in order to make a knit stitch, and there are two primary stitches in knitting. One is the knit stitch and one is the purl stitch. The knit stitch, you have your needles pointing the same way, and you go in so that they're both pointing the same way. Okay. You wrap it around between them and back behind the back needle there, the new needle. Okay, pardon my cat. So sorry, technical kitty difficulties. All right, they're pointed the same way. Poke them through, and if you don't have the dexterity I do, just bring it between the needles and around the outside of the needle you're moving things to. And you're going to pull this, and you got to kind of hold things together. And you're just going to pull that feed yarn through that first stitch and kick it off the left needle, kind of tug it with the right hand. So we have knit 1. Okay, we're going to do it again in the same direction, and just bring it between and over the right needle. Pull it through using the right needle. You're gonna pull that twist, or not. You're gonna pull it. Here's what it looks like from this angle. You bring it around in between and hold it, and then maneuver this one, the right hand needle, so that you're pulling the feed yarn through that other stitch, and pull that stitch off the left hand needle and tug it gently so it's the width of the new needle. So now we've done 2. Okay. Again, we're gonna just put them through the same direction. So the needles are both sticking in the same direction. We're gonna wrap it around that right hand needle, and we're just maneuvering to pull it through. more, and then I'll show you the purl stitch. Okay, again, this is the knit stitch, same direction, almost like, you know, you got two legs in the same pants hole here. Bring it through and between and on the right needle, and then we're just gonna maneuver this, and I'm holding it with my finger to pull it through, and then you're gonna again remove it from the left needle and put it on the right needle, and that's a knit stitch. Gonna do it again a little bit faster. Okay, I keep my yarn actually on my other finger so that I can use my middle finger to kind of maneuver the yarn. So that's what that looks like. It's just, and I think if you put the yarn in your other hand, which is I think the English method, then you would still wrap it between and around the right yarn, right to needle, and pull it through. I'm using the continental method, which is keeping the yarn in my left hand because I also crochet. All right, I'm gonna go again, same direction, just wrap it around. Oops. It's a little harder with the cat in the way, and pull it through. That's the knit stitch. Now the purl stitch, you're going to have the feed yarn in front of the work. With the knit stitch, you notice the work is, the yarn is behind it. Okay, so now for a purl stitch, you're going in the opposite direction. Okay, so I've just picked it up just like I did with the other one, but it's in the opposite direction now. And you're still going to wrap it, in this case, around, not between them, but around. Well, having some technical difficulties here. Okay, you're going to wrap it around and then between, over the right needle and then between. And then again, you're just going to maneuver it and pull it through. Okay. We're purling so that the feed yarn is in front. We're gonna just pick that out of there. And now they're in this, notice the needles are in the opposite direction. We're gonna go over and then between. And then we're gonna pull it off. The opposite direction. And I'm using my thumbnail to kind of pull that up. But you have to make sure that you get all of the plies of the yarn. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a split. Over and then between. And then I'm going to maneuver it through that other stitch and just pull it off. Okay. Opposite directions. And the feed yarn is in front. Over and then between. Okay. Over and then between. And then pull it off. Now for the knit, I'll go back to the knit stitch. The feed yarn is behind. And you're sort of picking it this way. And you're going between and then over. Same direction, between and then over. And I'm just going to do the rest of these in knit so we can get to the second row here. That's Eowyn, my little helper. Okay, so now I've got some knit, some purl, and some more knit. Now, to get to the next row, you're going to turn the needle around. You're going to put all this in your left hand and the empty needle in your right hand. Okay. Now you're gonna end up doing the opposite of what you did. In other words, this was knit on the right side, but now it's purl on the left side. So you got to match. If you do purl every row or knit every row, you end up with a garter stitch, which is that wavy kind of thing. But if you want the smooth texture, okay, so this was knit on the right side, so it's purl on the wrong side. You can see how it's got this little line right here below the stitch. I am gonna, again, we've got it in the opposite direction. The yarn isn't, the feed yarn is in front. I'm just picking through it. Oops. And over and then between, and then pull it through and get that needle, that stitch off the other needle. And I have messed up and I am working with the wrong end. That is something that happens. It happens. Okay, so back to the real thing, feed yarn, okay? And I'm gonna drop that so you can see better. I'm just picking through it. Hopefully get the right end here. Okay, over and then between and pull it through. Okay, pick through, over and then between, and then pick through. And I'm going to get to the knit stitches real quick. So on the other side where we were knitting or purling, there we go. They will now look like knit stitches because we're on the other side. Okay, so here is what was our purl stitches. And see, you see how it's a swoop instead of that line? So now the yarn needs to go in the back. And we're going back to the same direction, between and then around, and pull it through. And you do want to kind of manage your feed yarn so these stitches aren't so loose and not too tight. They need to be the width, roughly the width of the needle, but not, you don't have to put a death grip on it because that'll just make it really tight and really difficult to work with. Again, as you progress and get practice, you'll figure out how tight it needs to be for you and what, if you need to adjust your gauge, your needles, your yarn for a given pattern. Okay, so those are all what were the purl stitches that are now the knit stitches. And so we're back to the first part, which was knitting on the right side. So now we're going to purl again here on the wrong side, and I have split it, I think, somewhere in there. So we're going to do this. Again, the yarn's in front now. So we're between, and then it's over and then between for the purl stitch. Whereas for the knit stitch, it's between and then over. Okay, so I'm almost done with this row. So I'm at the end. So once again, I'm going to switch it to my right hand, or my left hand rather. So you can see that this is the knit side. This is the purl side, and more knit. So if you knit every row, I'll show you what that ends up looking like. That ends up being a garter stitch. And I'm just going to do this real quick. I think we'll get a short row in here. If you knit every row rather than purling on the wrong side, which is fine, it's a design element, then when you're on this side and you see this ring, instead of doing this, you can simply go back to the knit stitch. And that'll produce a texture that is zigzaggy. And I'm doing exactly the regular knit stitch, but I'm not. But even though it's purl on the other side. So now you see how this is kind of lumpy, and it will continue to get lumpy if you continue to do just the knit stitch. And I'm letting my yarn get a little loose here, but so that would be what the stockinette stitch is, which is knitting every row. Let me know if you have any questions, or if any part of this was unclear. I'll try to redo it. Thank you.